We're going to start this news hour in Afghanistan, where violence is getting more intense. Taliban fighters are moving towards big cities and provincial capitals. Government forces are struggling to push back in Kandahar, Afghanistan's second largest city. There have been a series of rocket attacks on the main airport, and flights in and out have been suspended. Hundreds of military commandos have been deployed to Herat in the west. There's heavy fighting outside that city. But the situation is particularly bad in Lashkar Gah, the capital of Helmand province. There, the Afghan Air Force has been blamed for bombing a hospital. The city of 200,000 people is in a real danger of falling to the Taliban. Charlotte Bellis has more from Kabul.
Heavy fighting in and around three major cities in Afghanistan. In Lashkar Gah, the capital of Helmand province, fighting started on Saturday when the Taliban entered the city. Residents said they could see the Taliban moving street to street, getting closer to the heart of the city until Afghan special forces entered. And since that time, they said they've just heard heavy gunfire and also airstrikes from Afghan Air Force and also from the United States, peppering around the outskirts of the city there. Communications have been cut off in Lashkar Gah, so incredibly hard to get information in and out of the city, and for residents to feel secure not knowing what is going on around them. In Kandahar city, the second biggest city in Afghanistan, also heavy fighting. Journalists there telling us they've heard constant gunfire for about 24 hours inside the city. The airport there was damaged by a rocket attack. Civilian flights were stopped, but they hope to resume them on Monday. But also US airstrikes and Afghan Air Force striking there to support their military on the ground. And thirdly, in Herat city in the west, that is looking a little bit better from the government's perspective. They've managed to retake control from the Taliban. They sent in reinforcements and they've managed to push the Taliban out further and re-secure the airport, allowing flights to resume for residents there. Now, President Ghani held a cabinet meeting where he talked about the security situation evolving. He said he doesn't believe that the Taliban are interested in peace and that securing cities are their priority.
Well, the Taliban has taken more territory in recent weeks than it did at any time since it fell from power 20 years ago. In May, it controlled about 20% of Afghanistan, but as US and other troops have been withdrawing, it seized the opportunity to ramp up its offensive. Within 2 months, half of the country has fallen under Taliban rule. The Afghan government is now facing a critical test as the fighters advance and surround the capital, Kabul. Viktor Yurosevich is a medical coordinator at the Emergency Surgical Center for War Victims in the center of Lashkar Gah. He says he hopes the neutrality of his facility will keep his team out of the conflict.
The situation in Lashkar Gah city itself, security-wise, deteriorated vastly since last 3 days, especially yesterday in the afternoon when we are seeing open clashes inside the city, close to the city center. We received 20 patients, mostly civilians. 9 patients arrived as dead on arrival, and all the city is now blocked. And we cannot predict the dynamics of the next days, even hours. Different variety of injuries. We have mine, shell, bullet. So all of them are war wounded. We had to narrow down criteria of admissions. Now we are taking only life-threatening conditions. So we only admit for the life-saving surgeries, as our bed occupancy reached more than 90%. And in this case, we need to narrow criteria just for the life-saving procedures. We have the stock for 3.5 months of all supplies, except of critical items that we try to get from our center in Kabul. Now, of course, with communication and transportation that is cut off, is going to be an issue in the next days as well. In this moment, there are no any tensions around the facility itself. Our main goal is neutrality. So we treat everybody as same. We don't ask questions. We don't ask who is from which party. And we hope this neutrality will help us to survive in the next period.